Episode 48 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast. I've said it the past 6 or 7 of these. Didn't think I'd make it this far. Episode 48. I'm here with Sam Shalvey. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
Pursuit Wrestling up in Ohio. I told you off camera, man, that I swore that you were like connected to Perler. And I was like, I get, and I followed you guys, right, for a long time. And you put out, and I share a lot of y'all's like little technique videos and things like that. You do an amazing job with that. And I think, man, like there's something to be said. You know, everybody talks about growing the sport of wrestling, right? Like it's always been a debate and a discussion. And I think that with social media, now I still think that kids spend too much time on their phones. Let me throw that out there first.
Oh, yeah, definitely. 1,000%. I agree.
Too much. But if they're going to be on them anyway, and you can catch attention to the sport of wrestling with like a short clip or, you know, a burst or something funny, like, you know, the little guys running around the mats or whatever it is, I think that's productive, right? If they're going to be on there anyway, and you guys do an amazing job. So just let's start at the beginning, man. Like, I ran across you kind of because it was like, dude, he likes everything I do. I kind of like this guy. And I seen your name and I seen your name and I seen your name. I was like, dude, I'm going to reach out and see if he wants to have a conversation. So let's start with you, man. Like, tell us kind of how you got into what it is you do now and where it started.
Yeah, so I got it started in wrestling pretty late compared to most people. I didn't really have any of my family that wrestled. My uncle wrestled back in the day, but he lives out of state, so he got 4th place in the state, I believe, in 1976. I want to say in West Virginia. I forget what high school he went to. I think it was State College High School. He ended up playing football at Penn State. It could have been a different high school. I forget though. But he was kind of the only one in my family that wrestled, but I never knew that he wrestled until like later on. So my dad never really wrestled, like never really got into it. I kind of found out about it on my own because a buddy at my middle school told me that it would help me out for football. I was a big football guy at the time. Grew up watching football. My Uncle Bernie played football at Penn State, so I just kind of grew up a big Penn State fan. My dad kind of raised us as Penn State fans from birth. So we live here in Columbus, Ohio, but we were always big Penn State fans, watching every Saturday, root for them every weekend. And so when I was in 8th grade, I decided to go out for wrestling because I was playing on the offensive line. I was playing left guard on the offensive line, and they just said, hey, this will help you out. It'll help you, block guys better, whatnot. So I decided to go out for wrestling in 8th grade, and that was my first year. And my middle school team wasn't that great. No offense to my coaches that were there at the time, but they weren't really like great wrestling coaches. I kind of think they were just kind of there for the paycheck type of thing. And I had no clue about off-season wrestling or anything of that nature at this time, looking back on it. So when I moved into high school the following year, I was kind of at a disadvantage a little bit. It was basically like my first year when I was a freshman because I really didn't learn too much. I think I got like 14 matches in maybe my 8th grade year, very, very like short middle school season. Scholastic middle school wrestling in Ohio isn't a great like foundation to start. You kind of need to do extra in order to jump levels quickly if you're kind of behind. So I didn't have a great foundation going into high school, but I kind of quickly started to realize what I needed to do as we had a guy on my high school team who qualified for the state tournament for us. He was a senior. I was a freshman, and he was our first state qualifier in 7 years. His name was Caleb Laneza, and that's kind of how I got into it. I saw him qualify for the state tournament. I heard about all that he did kind of leading up to that point. And this guy wrestled for a long time. He had a lot of experience, but to see him finally punch through to the Schottenstein Center as a senior was really inspiring to me. I saw him put all the hard work in throughout the season, everything that kind of went into it. He told me about all the off-season wrestling that he did leading into that final season for him. So that's what really motivated me to start like taking this seriously and start doing stuff. So that was kind of the foundation. And from there, just ended up turning into a journey of like wrestling, doing off-season after my freshman year, after my sophomore year, and just progressively getting better each year. So that's kind of how I really got into it from the get-go.
Dude, it's funny. One thing I want to point out that I think is hilarious. You live in Columbus, Ohio, That's like blasphemy, dude, to be a Penn State fan.
It is. It is. Yeah. So my whole life, I got crap, my whole life, all the way through school. Everyone, making fun of me, especially when everything went down in 2011 with the whole, Jerry Sandusky scandal and Joe Paterno.
Right.
I got a lot of crap and, middle school kids saying stuff to me, whatever. And I didn't take that the best. That was really tough times for me looking back. But it kind of moves on. Time moves on, whatever. And Penn State's doing a lot better now. I think people kind of people still like joke around, make jokes about that and stuff. But it's like time moves on. I'm not really. I don't watch as much as I used to. I'm not as much into football as I used to. Wrestling kind of took over. It's like my main passion, my main love. So I used to be obsessed with NFL football, obsessed with college football. Like no, I'm like very, I don't know if it's like autism or something that I have, but I'm very just like, I know every single, like, I know the quarterback on like every single team. I knew like the third string quarterback on every single team. I'm that kind of guy. And so when I got into wrestling, it ended up turning into like that same thing with like wrestling stats. I knew just everybody in Central High Wrestling. I knew their record, like what they did, all 4 years of high school, et cetera, like all their credentials were. I kind of looked up all the guys. So it's this weird thing I've always had. I had it before I was in wrestling too. A lot of people don't know that. Everyone makes fun of me in the wrestling world that like I'm like the stats guy. I just know everything about everybody. But I had that when I was into football too. And it's like, I don't know why I'm like that. That's just my weird thing, but it is what it is. So
I have a similar, man. Like first, let's go back to the Penn State thing.
Yeah.
My mother was from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
She moved with my dad down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, like 1987. I'm 37, so I was born in 88. So it was like a few months before I was born. And so I never lived in Ohio. My whole family was from up there and all that. But every year I would get Ohio State and Cleveland Browns gear sent to me at Christmas. Dude, I had... Like, I remember in like 2002, like Maurice Claret, remember him at Ohio State? And I got a jersey sent to me. I think it was 13. Wasn't he 13, I think?
I think so.
I think he was. I'm almost sure it was 13. And I got this jersey, and like, you're talking 2002, like a Nike jersey, even in 2002, was like $100, right? Probably. And it had the tags on it and shit. And I'm like, dude, I'm from the South. And down here, you're either a Tennessee, Georgia, or Alabama fan. I wear my Alabama hat in every single episode of this podcast. I have an A tattooed on my left shoulder. Like, I was a Bama fan before Saban showed up. Like, I went to the camp every single summer, and it was the coolest experience. Dude, I didn't know what to do with that. And this is like pre-social media, but I remember like throwing it in a barrel and burning it.
Right.
And we recorded it on a video camera. I was like, I don't want any of this Ohio State shit.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I always kind of favored the Browns, right? And, I'm from North Georgia, and I grew up during the Michael Vick era.
Yeah.
Right? Dude, he was electric.
Yeah.
And I got to see him live twice. And dude, it doesn't do him justice on TV. When you're on the like 45-yard line and you see him scramble to one side of the field, stop, turn, go to the other side of the field, stop, turn a flip, spin, and hit a 70-yard touchdown. It's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And so like I always loved Atlanta only because of Michael Vick. Today, the Falcons suck, dude. I'm tired of them. They piss me off. Yeah, but that's another thing. But the Browns are the most dysfunctional team in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Like, dysfunctional. Like, so you were talking about being an NFL fan.
Yeah.
And, right now it's the Shedeur Sanders drama and, Deshaun Watson got all that money. And it's just, it's been a mess since they came back in 2002. Yep. So I'm just curious. You told me you're a Penn State fan. Who you were in the NFL?
So when I got into NFL, I wasn't. My dad never really pushed like NFL on us. We weren't huge like NFL fans. I think my dad was like a Chiefs fan for some reason. I forget what the connection is there. But when I got into NFL, my brother ended up becoming a San Diego Chargers fan. We were just in like elementary school. We kind of like picked a team type of thing. So he was a big Chargers fan. He loved LaDainian Tomlinson. That was his team. My brother's 2 years below me. I'll talk about him a little bit in this podcast too because he kind of helped me out kind of get to the point I am in life now. But and my team was I ended up picking the Carolina Panthers because my uncle Bernie, who played football at Penn State, ended up moving to North Carolina, and so they just lived there, And I was like, let me pick, and we'd go down to see them in the summer and stuff, for a couple of weeks. They live in Charlotte or Mooresville, which is a little bit north of Charlotte. Live on Lake Norman, have a beautiful house. We always go down there, spend time on the lake and everything. Have a boat and jet ski and all that. And so I ended up becoming a Carolina Panthers fan. So in 2011, when Cam Newton got drafted, I was like deep into the fandom at that point. I would always do the touchdown celebration where he like rips that's a Superman cape, all that. So big Cam Newton fan, big Luke Kuechly fan when they were both there.
Right.
Steve Smith, he was kind of the latter half of his career at that time. Those are kind of my guys around that time.
Moose and Muhammad. You remember Moose and Muhammad?
Yeah. So he was there before I started following them. But yeah, I remember Moose and Muhammad. Yeah, I ended up watching like their old like Super Bowl run and everything in 2003 when they went against Tom Brady and the Patriots, whatever. They were super close to beating them. I think
I watched the game live.
Yeah,
and I was brutal. Like Brady had almost turned in, even at that point, into like a super villain.
Yeah.
And it's like Mahomes is now, right? Everybody wants to everybody loved the Super Bowl this year. Dude, They hit him every 3 plays for 4 quarters. And it was great. But dude, that's really cool because, real quick, and then we'll shift back in what we were talking about. But Moose and Muhammad, I'll tell you a story I heard about. Nick Saban talked about Moose and Muhammad. He coached him at Michigan State.
Okay.
And they wanted to he kept getting in trouble, right? Kept getting in trouble. And the media was like all over Saban because he wouldn't kick him off the team. And he brought up in an interview at Alabama, I guess at this point, he had national championships and he can do really what he wants. And he said, this guy kept getting in trouble. I suspended him. I made him do extra. Now he runs a Fortune 500 company. He's got 7 kids and one of them's at Princeton. So who was right?
Right.
And I always really related to that because my son's been in a lot of trouble. I have a younger son that's been in a lot of trouble. Like, people make mistakes,
Yep.
And there's really, when you make mistakes, there's only one or two ways to go. You either pick yourself up and move forward, or you don't move and you end up falling backward. And I think that anybody's success, and I'm only bringing this up for like a PSA message, but anybody's success, you never get anywhere alone. Right. You always, and I'm kind of transitioning. You were talking about your brother. Like there's somebody that everybody has that gives them like a second chance or a third chance, and it kind of shapes who they are. So I've always, when I heard that, I always liked Moose and Muhammad. I played with him on like Madden 64 back in the day. And it's funny you brought up the Carolina Panthers because I remember hearing that from Nick Saban, and I was thinking, dude, that's amazing. Like, he literally changed that dude's life, He took the heat for him and he gave him another chance, and look where he's at now. He was a fringe Hall of Fame all-pro guy, and that's a great thing. But everybody's got somebody. So let's transition into your brother. You're talking about your younger brother and how he kind of morphed you into who you are now.
Yeah. So the kind of story with him is I ended up getting him into wrestling when he was in 8th grade. I wrestled 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year. My sophomore year, my brother, he was like, we were into basketball and stuff. We got into wrestling. I ended up getting my brother into wrestling. My high school coach was like, hey, you got to get him, out for our team and everything. And I was the 160 pounder in the varsity lineup that year in 2015-16. My brother Jacob, he was a freshman that year in the lineup at 106. I told him, I said, hey, you need to go down to 106 so you can be our varsity guy for us, or else
your brother.
Yeah. So he was a really small kid. He was a really small wrestler. But I told him, I was like, hey, go 106 so you can start, because you're not going to start at 113 or 120. Those are the next 2 weight classes up. So he cut down to 106. He was our guy. We had a pretty decent lineup that year, I think. And I was kind of helping him out. So at that point in my career, it was like, my dad never wrestled really. Like, I didn't have anyone that really knew how to wrestle, like, help him out. So I was kind of like his dad, essentially, like kind of helping him out, showing him the ropes and stuff, because I had a few prior years of experience before he started. So I kind of helped him, get into it. I told him about off-season wrestling. We would travel around the state of Ohio and get all these tournaments, around Ohio that I found out about online, hightournaments.com. We'd go everywhere and wrestle. I found out about freestyle Greco. We started on the freestyle Greco stuff around Ohio, all the USA wrestling, qualifiers in the springtime. We were traveling all over the place. My mom, and I started driving around this time too. So I was able to, drive myself, and so I would take him with me, my mom's car, whatever. So just stuff like that. That's kind of how I got him into it. And then he ended up having, he had a better high school career than I did. He made it farther, in the postseason than I did. I never made it to state or anything like that. By the end of my career, I was close, but just didn't quite make it. My brother Jacob, after I went and wrestled, or after I committed to go wrestle Otterbein University, which is right down the street from Westerville South High School, where we went, I was still living at home, saving money on room and board and stuff. So we were still living in the same house. He's 2 years behind me, so he still had 2 years left in high school, and I was a freshman, sophomore at Otterbein. So I was able to kind of come back and help him in addition to wrestling Otterbein, which is really, because I wanted him to do better than I did. That was kind of my whole thing. I didn't achieve my goal in high school of qualifying for the state tournament. I want to see if I can help my brother, achieve the goal that I couldn't achieve. So I was still wrestling in college, but I would be around the high school program. They were right down the street. So I would be around as much as I could, help him out, et cetera, et cetera. So he ended up falling in love with lifting around this time. I kind of fell in love with the weight room. He ended up he played football too, but he ended up getting hurt in football during his sophomore year. I think on a kickoff return or something like that, or on kickoff, some position on kickoff. He broke his collarbone, and and it was mid-season, so he had enough time to recover to come back for the wrestling season. But at the beginning, it was right after the first tournament, he re-broke his collarbone again in practice 2 days later, and he had to have surgery, and he was done for the year. That was the end of his sophomore year of wrestling. So he wrestled his freshman year. He's at 106 pounds, comes back his sophomore year. He's up at 132 now. He was kind of hitting puberty and growing a little bit, breaks his collarbone, gets hurt, and he's done for the year. And so he's going through recovery that year, wearing a sling the whole season, whatever, just kind of, coming to the tournaments to watch me and stuff, because I was a senior that year on the team. And then the following year, he kind of fell in love with lifting as he was recovering, kind of fell in love with the weight room, hit the weight room really hard as he was continuing to grow. So he was always the smaller kid, my whole life. And then all of a sudden he shoots up and becomes this gigantic beast of a dude, and he ended up wrestling 182 pounds his senior year. In the varsity lineup for us. And he was 2 wins away from making to the Schottenstein Center, qualifying for the state tournament. So he made a big jump going from a first-year wrestler, as an 8th grader, to almost qualifying for the state tournament by his senior year. So I was really happy with how his career ended. And the way that I kind of frame that is because the way I kind of say all that backstory is because as he fell in love with lifting, he created a fitness Instagram account in 2018 during his junior year of high school. And he started posting on there. He would go to the gym, after wrestling practice and stuff, and film his lifts and post on his fitness Instagram account. And this is kind of how he kind of blew up on social media back when the fitness industry was super small at the time. There weren't a whole lot of people posting fitness on Instagram. It was a super kind of niche thing. He kind of blew up as this the guy in the fitness industry, and just posted consistently for a couple of years. And then so after he graduated high school in 2019, he went to Ohio State down the street, and not to play sports or anything, but just he had good grades, went there for school, whatever. And he was still lifting while he was at Ohio State, and his fitness Instagram really started to take off this time. He was ginormous, and a lot of people might say he's not natty or whatever, but he's all natural. He's never taken anything. He doesn't ever plan on taking any gear or anything, but he just lifted freaking hard, and just he's just obsessed with training. He would be in the weight room every single day and sleeping, 8+ hours a night. And just doing everything he could for optimal recovery. So he blew up and just became this crazy transformation. He made a transformation video of him going from this small 106-pound kid, wrestler as a freshman to, now he's a beast, senior wrestler. And then he graduates, and now he's at Ohio State, and he's still lifting. And he ended up getting a sponsorship from a company called Gorilla Mind in 2020, fall of 2020. And he became, I think he's Gorilla Mind's 10th athlete overall, maybe. And they're a huge company now. A guy named Derek More Plates, More Dates on YouTube started that company. He was a big guy in the fitness industry, still is, but he has a huge channel with over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and stuff. So Derek found out about Jacob early on. Jacob was a freshman in college, sponsored him. And I kind of saw this happening at the time. That's kind of how I got to that's kind of how I got into social media, because I didn't really know anything about social media before that. I was just kind of like posting, like I created like I was running social media accounts. I was running an account for a club that I was helping out with in my high school called Columbus Wrestling Club. That was how I was training a lot of off-season wrestling at the time. I created an Instagram account for them. I was running that account for the main coach who runs that program. Post on there and stuff, taking photos, whatnot. I started the Instagram account for my high school, pretty much all the social media accounts for my high school wrestling team. I was running those, so I already kind of had like a knack for social media a little bit. Like I was passionate about posting and stuff and like documenting things. But when my brother popped off in the fitness industry, that kind of opened a whole new world for me as far as like social media goes. And I just found out about, filming yourself, and like, I kind of had the idea of like, I'm going to create like wrestling content, like not just like posting like little iPhone photos on my Instagram or whatever, and then like typing a caption, of how we did at the tournament type of thing. That's what I was doing before, but actually like filming myself like wrestling, and like posting like technique videos and stuff like that. I kind of had this like idea in my brain, at the time in like 2020 when my brother kind of blew up on social media. I think he passed like 10K followers in like July of 2020. So that was kind of when things really started to gain traction. I think now he's at like he's just shy of 100K followers, several years later. So
yeah.
So he kind of blew up, he's like an OG fitness. He's collabed with some of the biggest creators in the fitness industry. A lot of people on a brand called Young LA. That's a really big fitness brand that's kind of blown up over the past few years. People like that. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I ended up buying a camera. Like I found out about, cameras and stuff. My brother and all the people that he knows, I kind of like got this information off them, and I bought a camera, like a professional camera. I saved up a bunch of money from working a summer job in 2020. And that camera is still what I use today to film all the videos I film and everything. But at the time in 2020, I was just kind of filming myself. Like I ended up buying my own wrestling mats, with some of the money I saved up, like home use wrestling mats. I set up mats in my apartment that I was living in, and I was like filming wrestling like tutorial videos just like on my own, in my apartment, and posting those on social media, trying to get my own thing going. This is before Pursuit like reached out to me, but they found out about me because of all the little things I was doing, kind of all the way through up to that point. And so that's kind of how they found out about me. They knew me prior to that, like Bracken, the guy that everyone sees on social media, that everyone knows.
Right.
Me and Bracken knew each other in high school, but he was way better at wrestling than me. He was like a state champ, Old Angel Liberty, like wrestled D1 at Ohio State. I was like far from where he was. He started wrestling when he was like 4 years old. He's been at it forever. So he didn't really know who I was. I always knew who he was, again, because I'm like, I knew who everybody was, like everyone's credentials. So like I watched Bracken his whole career. In high school, I would be at the Derby District watching him, beat up on everybody. He had some big name wins in high school. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. So,
dude, and then you were the one that kind of took off with the Pursuit, like social media, from what you had told me, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they literally brought me on because of like all my knowledge with the social media and everything. And they're like, and they know I know how to wrestle too. I wrestled 5 years in college at Otterbein University. So like, hey, you can be an assistant coach here, alongside like Bracken and everybody else. Bracken's the head coach. And we're all the 3, 4, 5 of us. Other ones are all assistants. But they're like, your main role here is to help us out with our media, because we have like no clue what we're doing. So,
dude, I really relate to everything you just said, right? Like you talked about your brother, and he's got this amazing following in the fitness industry. And dude, back in, let's see, my oldest son, Bryson's 15. So what was 15 years ago? 2010, 2009. He was born at the end of 2009. So early 2010, before me and his mother, whatever happened with that, she had a Facebook page. And I'm like, what the hell is Facebook? All right. Yeah. And I remember thinking how stupid it was. I was like, because I had a MySpace page in high school. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
So, but I never used it. And I just remember people bitching in the hallways. Like girlfriends would yell at boyfriends, "You're not in my top 8." And I'm like, how stupid is this? Like, I always thought it was just the dumbest thing.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm literally standing next to you. Like, what does this matter?
Yeah.
you fast forward, I had my first son, Bryson. He's the one that wrestles, and we've been everywhere. And he was a baby, and his mother told me that I had needed to get a Facebook page. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with a Facebook page?
Yeah.
I don't care, but I made one. And this is the first experience I ever had with how stupid social media really can be.
Right.
I didn't know to put I was in a relationship or I was married or whatever. And she was pissed at me. You're cheating on me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? Like, so that was my introduction into what social media is now.
Right.
And I'm like, this is just dumb, right? Like when I was growing up, right, we didn't have everything kids have now. We would go out in fields and drink beer and raise hell, and we would play football on Friday nights, and like, you know, it was just a different time. So I knew, though, going into it that I needed to kind of catch up. So how can I get to the full understanding of this? So I played on it for a while, and I'd post stupid shit, and I was like, this is whatever, you know. Well, fast forward, I worked in the cable industry, right? I still do to a degree, my other business I'm involved in. But I was a system tech back then. That was my job. And I ran outages and things like that. And I was in class. You had to go to class every so often for whatever. And the trainer didn't show up one day. He just like, screw this, I'm out, see you. It's like, what do we do? So we're sitting in this is my story of getting into social media. I was sitting in this class with like 9 guys from like all over the state of Tennessee and Georgia. And none of us knew each other. And the whole weekend was terrible. The week was terrible because when we got there at like 3 a.m, they didn't even have us a hotel room. We slept in our bucket trucks. This is a national company. Should have had all this set up, right? It was a mess. But we're all sitting there kind of agitated. And I see a pressure tap. Now, I'm not going to get into cable here, but I'll explain to you what it is. Excuse me. A pressure tap back in like the 70s and early 80s. If you ever look up on poles, right, you'll see like those gray boxes that are hanging. Those are amplifiers. Well, it feeds hardline cable all over, you know, that area. Well, a pressure tap would essentially bite into that cable and make contact, and then a drop would feed the house to give them service. The problem is that they would leak into the air, right? Because they would leak. And that leak caused a crash in Iowa, and an airplane crash, because it interfered with air traffic control. And I didn't know all this. I learned it that day, but I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Yeah. And prior to that, I'd worked at a different company, and I kind of missed all the dudes I worked with for all that time. So I took a picture of it, and I started a CATV text group. As of today, I haven't posted in it in 5 years probably, okay? But let's just look, and this was my introduction to social media. The group, as of today, has 15,800 members. Wow. I don't post in it. I don't do anything. But I just added all my buddies from Facebook that I used to work with and posted this picture. And then somewhere along the way, I got told to start a page. You need a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. All right. And at one point, I had a bunch of guys from all over the country that were posting like memes and shit, like in cable space. And we grew 3 Facebook pages. Again, I don't post in them very much anymore. Like, I got other people that do it, and I don't really care. But let's see, like one of them's got 32,000 followers on Facebook. Cable Technicians of America. Tech Life is my baby one. It's got, I think, 10,000. And then CATV Techs has got 18,414 as of today. Wow. And I built our company page, and it's got over 17,000. Yeah. Wow. So I started learning social media essentially in the cable space. And I didn't really get it. But I was like, I'm going to figure it out. And I did. And I started realizing, here's what I do. If I can trigger a response, an emotional response, I'm going to gain a follower.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought, right?
Yeah.
And like, and I'll say this out loud now because it's been on there for 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll laugh at this. About 3 weeks ago, I shared a reel. The best wrestling high school teams in the country, right? Best high school wrestling teams. And it was obviously the most bullshit list in the world, right? But I'm like, this is going to piss a lot of people off. So I share it. And then the first or second, third comment, I put not my list, period. And that's all I did. So I took all the accountability off of me, off of Bmoney Beastin, off of the Matt Clash brand. And I put it just, it's there. Dude, there was arguments upon arguments. I thought dudes were going to jump through phones to like fight over this high school wrestling list. So I kind of had this theory that if you can just trigger an emotional response or be relatable. So like in general, we don't have a club, right? Matt Clash doesn't have a club. We do. We are starting to have the travel teams, which is going to be cool. And we'll have documentation of that and videos and things. But right as of now, we don't have a club. I think the goal is to start kind of partnering up with clubs across the country and, in exchange to like, hey, we'll do you gear packages at a better rate. We'll, promote you, promote your kids, things like that, kind of come together. Maybe you get a custom character for your brand, put them in the game. There's a lot of things we've kind of thrown around. But in general, in the situation we're in, is kind of we're just a digital company, right? And as a digital company, we have to be creative and find ways to, get connected to the niche, group of people that we're trying to reach. So I just started, like when I started that Instagram page, I think we're at like 28,000 maybe right now.
Yeah. You guys have been growing a lot. I mean, you've grown that page a lot. Like I've been following you guys. I think I was following you guys before you had 10K for sure. I remember, seeing you early on. Yeah. You've grown that page a lot. It's impressive.
I just tried to, one thing I did early on that I thought was cool is I found this app where I could build videos and I wanted to tell stories. So like I found these crazy cool stories. Like I bet you didn't know Kurt Cobain wrestled, did you?
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
That's something I found that his dad, like he had no interest in it. And it was a funny, awesome story. And the video blew up when I talked about it.
Wow. Kurt
Cobain, his dad tried to force him, and whoever don't know who Kurt Cobain is, he's the lead singer in Nirvana. He passed away sadly, years ago. But he hated sports, but his dad forced him to wrestle. And that in spite of his dad, he just at his first tournament or whatever, he just laid down and let the kid pin him because he didn't care. And I was like, I think this is relatable. So I would find things like that, or like, St. Edward's up in Ohio had a run.
Yeah.
So I made a video about how impressive they were. And I talked about Grandview out in Iowa, I believe, the NAIA. So I remember making a video about that. And that's kind of where I started, trying to just get that niche audience. And now I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build and get into the community, like with guys like you and like different, like I've met so many cool people where we can kind of build out this. Our long-term goal is to build youth wrestling mecca.
Yeah.
Like everybody, Rudis and Nike, and like I'm saying, I'm not bashing anybody. They go out, they want Spencer Lee. He's a stud. We love him. All these guys. We want the little guys. That's what our niche is. And we want to help make wrestling cool for the little guys. And that's the goal here, right? Like Power Rangers, I've said it a million times, when they came out in the early 90s, everybody went to a karate studio.
Yeah.
So we've created a universe of characters, dude. Like, and our goal with that is to get kids to join a wrestling club.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So that's our long-term vision. But that was a long-winded answer of how I got into social media.
Yeah.
I feel like it related to how you got into social media.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And if it wasn't for my brother, like what I was going to be doing before I found out about this whole world was I just want to be a teacher and a coach. I wanted to be a high school wrestling coach. So I in college, when I first went in November 2017, when I started wrestling there, I was majoring in education. I was trying to be a high school math teacher. and a wrestling coach, because I was afraid, like, I'm not gonna be able to coach wrestling if I'm not a teacher, and that was really the only reason why I wanted to be a teacher, was so I could coach high school wrestling. I was so passionate about it. I was kind of helping out my brother, obviously, like I mentioned before. But I always had this passion for like social media, or like wrestling media. I would film my brother's matches and stuff. I'd film the whole team's matches. I have a YouTube channel called Western South Wrestling. It's got maybe a few hundred subscribers on YouTube. But I just posted like every single kid's matches on that channel. They would all watch their matches. I would go to every tournament, film every match, so like I was doing that while I was like majoring in education and stuff. So I had this passion for like media, but it was only just like it was just like a side passion type of thing. I wasn't making any money from it or anything, obviously. But a lot of those videos have like a lot of views. We had a really good guy. He was a state placer during those years. Like his videos have a lot of views on YouTube, thousands of views, because he was like such a good wrestler. So I kind of discovered this early on. I was like, man, like wrestling videos are popping off. They're getting like a lot of views, and people enjoy watching this guy, wrestle on YouTube. And so, but when my brother kind of popped off on social media, I was kind of deep into the education major at that point. And it was 2020 during quarantine. There wasn't a lot going on. I just had a lot of time to like reflect back on my life. And I was like, do I really want to be a teacher the rest of my life and kind of make like the same amount of money like every single year, make my teaching salary, whatever? Because I have this entrepreneurial like spirit, this entrepreneurial like vision, and like I don't want to be capped out like the same amount of money I'm making every single year the rest of my life. And not saying like being a teacher would be bad or whatever, it's a good gig, obviously, but I just want to do more than that, and I enjoy coaching wrestling. So at this time, I really didn't really pursue, wasn't even a thing at this point, Pursuit didn't become a thing until October 2020. So I didn't know that it would all end up working out for me. I get to like coach wrestling, which I love doing, but I also get to do the media stuff too. I wanted to do both. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, because going into college, I wanted to be like a sports broadcaster. That was my whole thing. Like when I was a senior in high school, I visited Ohio University for like journalism school, their journalism school, stuff like that, to kind of go into that route. I visited like Bowling Green, and places like that. I was just going to like go to school, try to get in like a sports broadcasting thing. I was really passionate about that. But then I was like, oh, now I want to be a teacher. That was kind of going into my freshman year in college. And then I was in that major for 3 years, and I changed my major to journalism, media communications, back to what I was going to go in for originally, and then I ended finishing out my last 2 years in college doing the journalism. At that point, I was like figuring out social media and everything. Pursuit had reached out to me in December 2021. Bracken DM'd me on Instagram. And then at that point, I was using Pursuit as my internship, to graduate from Otterbein. So that's kind of how it all went. And then I've been in Pursuit ever since. But yeah, it's been cool to see how it's all like connected, and I get to do what I love on a daily basis every day, coaching wrestling, which was my dream from the beginning. And then I get to do the wrestling media too. So it all kind of worked out at the time. During those years, I was like, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with the rest of my life. I just knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know that it was all going to work out the way that it did. So I'm really fortunate, really blessed, that God allowed it to all work out this way. So.
And this is your full-time job.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's all I do. I don't do anything else. I literally post the Pursuit videos. I coach the practices Monday through Thursday night. We run 2 practices a night, Monday through Thursday. So, I'll be there again tonight, 5:30 p.m. to 8:30. And I run private lessons. We all run private lessons there too. So that's literally all I do. We go to tournaments. We have like events on the weekends. We do sometimes, we go to a tournament, whatever. We go to about 2 tournaments a month. So we kind of like a schedule built out, a yearly schedule. It's like a PDF on our website of kind of all the events we're attending. We run these clinics and scraps. We have one coming up here on Sunday too. Cody Garbrandt's going to be at our facility this Sunday. Actually, we end up getting a deal with the UFC. I think the Air Force is sponsoring the event as well. So we've been able to get some big name guys in. We just had Dylan D'Amelio in a few weeks ago, which is super cool. 2-time All-American at Ohio State. We have a guy named Dave Habit, who's a 2-time NCAA champ, I believe, and he was like big on the freestyle circuit. Dave Habit's running our practices right now on Wednesday nights at Pursuit, showing a lot of freestyle, high-level freestyle techniques. We had Alex Deeringer in last summer, last July. Deeringer, I'm not sure how you say his last name, but 3-time NCAA champ. I forget what he did on the senior level, but I know he's like really good on the senior level too. And then, I'm trying to think who else. We had Rocco Welsh in last May. I know he's at Penn State now, but he was at Ohio State last year before he transferred. We had Rocco Welsh in May of 2024 last year. Rocco Welsh did a camp for us. So I've gotten to film some big name guys. I have all their techniques and stuff that they filmed. So it's been pretty sweet to like have those connections and have those things like on my resume. I got to film Nick Feldman last year when he came to a camp, the Marines wrestling camp at Old Angel Liberty High School locally down the street. That was super cool. So I've gotten to meet some big name people and kind of build my resume there. So that's been super. I've had a lot of cool opportunities in my few years with Pursuit so far.
That sounds really cool, man. Like I do got a question though. Where you're at, and you guys are like right in the center of Columbus, you said?
Yes, yeah, correct. It's called Lewis Center, Ohio. It's about 30 minutes north of Ohio State. You just take 315 north straight up from Ohio State, and you're there. Dude,
how far is that from like Jeff Jordan?
It's about an hour. Jordan's is about an hour west of us. So we're not too far out from Jordan's. Jordan's is in a really small town called Champaign County.
Yeah, we've been up there.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you the story like real quick because I was curious how far away it was. The first year we ever went to the Jeff Jordan camp, which I love the Jordans. They're great people.
Same here.
Every year we've been, Micah is like just the greatest dude. Shout out to Micah Jordan and the Jordan State Champ Camp. I just wanted to tell this story because I thought it was pertained because you're up there and would get it. Dude, we're from North Georgia, but we're right on the outskirts of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So Chattanooga is like the third largest city in the state, right? So we're close to everything, like within 5, 10, 12 minutes. And we're driving up to, it's Urbana. They're in Urbana. So we're driving and we get to this like little town and there's like a thrift store and a gas station or whatever the hell it is. And all right, cool. We got to be getting close. Got to be here somewhere. And it still says 40 minutes. And I'm like, how the hell is this? And we just keep driving. We start seeing cow fields and hay bales and some old man on a tractor. And we just keep driving, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. And boom, it says, you will arrive in like 2 minutes. And I'm like, there's no way there's a wrestling camp out here. We get up to where you've been up there, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah.
You know where you turn right there off of that little road, and the camp that building's in the back there, and there are little stores up front.
Yep.
And I'm like, how in the hell do they have a wrestling camp out here in the middle of nowhere? But dude, they do a phenomenal job too.
Yeah, they do.
In terms of like, we've been to Perler. Perler does a great job.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've been to several big camps. Perler does a great job. He has a unique approach where he's strategic, and I think that's really unique.
Yes.
It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. I think that's cool. The Jordans, Jeff Jordan had like, he'll tell stories and kind of like the back end of where he came up with this or where this came from. Yeah. And there's a mat return that Bryson uses to this day. He got when he was 8 years old at the Jeff Jordan camp. You basically just flip your hips and throw them back over your knee. And he hits it all the time, like to this day. Wow. And Jeff Jordan told the story behind that, and I'll never forget it. He said that he had a kid that had to ride a kid for 40 seconds to win state one year, and he just couldn't do it. And he said, I have to find a way to make this work, to be able to continuously mat return in that situation. And he said, I just came up with this. It works. It's legal. And I don't know if that's I wouldn't think he's going to lie to us, but he told us this story. And I thought, if he even took like a variation and recreated it, that's like so ingenuity, man. Like finding a way. And I was like, that's awesome. And their camps are tough, dude. Like,
they are
demanding. And then, we've been to like UT Chattanooga's camp, and down here there's a couple of training centers like Grindhouse is North Georgia. Matt Pitts runs Grindhouse. He does a great job. Minion, who formerly was like a Georgia travel team. is now a training center out of UT Chattanooga.
Okay.
So we have options. And then Cleveland High School up in Tennessee, Cleveland, Tennessee, they've won like, I don't know, 1 million state championships in a row.
Yeah.
They run good practices too if you ever need to jump catch a practice, and the room's open to anybody. So we have like a good little nucleus. And I want to transition into this because Ohio is a predominantly big time wrestling state, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, New Jersey, Illinois. I'm just kind of throwing out some, in the South, we're not predominantly known for wrestling, right? We're just not.
The South's definitely gotten better for sure.
I was going to throw that out there. At NHSCA this year, I was kind of keeping track, right? And we had a lot of Georgia and Tennessee kids just smashing people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it, and I was like, granted, we have a lot of opportunity down here now that wasn't here 15 years ago. But one thing that's different in down here versus up there is this. On the youth level, you have, like up there, your youth tournament's probably pretty tough. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like your youth tournaments. Here, like a Tennessee, like top 100, for instance, they have 3 of them through the season. And now you have to be a Tennessee resident in order to get the belt if you win or whatever. But like anybody can wrestle in them. You're going to have 2 kids that could win it and everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that is. And then in Georgia, now I've said this for a long time, Georgia is deeper than Tennessee. Tennessee's real top heavy. You got like a handful of kids at the top and then everybody else. In Georgia, it's a lot deeper. So you're 4 or 5 deep, right? It weights. Right. Now up there, you're probably 25 deep.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of the difference. I think the participation is different.
Yeah.
From the South to the North. Plus, we're in a spot where football is king, right?
Right. Like, in the South,
Dude, like
SEC.
These towns shut down, man. Like for high school football games. Like I remember that shit. I did it. So like, you'd be coming back from an away game and the whole city's got shit painted on windows. And like, that's just the way it is down here. And, you got boosters that'll, put thousands and thousands of dollars into new helmets or whatever. Hey, we got to win. So, wrestling has always been kind of a sub-sport culture here, right? Where you were talking about how you got into it by playing football. Hey, this will make you better. And I still can't believe you're tiny. How the hell they had you playing guard? But
I know, dude. I know. My senior year in high school, I had to bulk from 160. I wrestled 160 my junior year to 195, just so I could start right guard on the O line. I wasn't fast enough to play any of the skill positions. So I'm like, I need to get fat to be able to start varsity my senior year, and I did, and I made it. And I started, the whole season, everything. It was good, but yeah, it wasn't easy,
dude. And it's funny you said that, dude, because when I was in rec league, because I came up playing football and baseball, and I was a shitty ass baseball player. I'm just gonna say that right now, dude. I got cut from the 8th grade baseball team because I couldn't hit the broadside of anything, and that was the only time in my life I've ever been cut from anything. I was so embarrassed. But I grew up playing football and baseball. I could pitch, but I couldn't hit, and I played like quarterback and safety, and I played receiver one year, and then I played fucking fullback. Then I get to middle school and they put me at middle linebacker because I'm a little bigger than everybody else. I'm like, what the hell am I? Dude, I'm a quarterback, or I'm, what are we doing? And from that summer, I grew so much from like 6th or 7th grade to like 8th grade. I went from like 5'5" and 5'6", whatever I was, and like 130 pounds to like 6 foot, 190 or whatever the hell I was. And it was like in a year, and I'm like, dude, I'm not a linebacker. I do this. All right, let's clock you. All right, I ran like a 5'1". Yeah, you're a fucking linebacker. So it's like, okay, I get it. And I ended up playing defensive end in high school. I made all area and all that stuff. And
nice.
But dude, I wasn't very big. I didn't get big like you were talking about bulk in your senior year.
Yeah,
dude, my junior year I weighed like 210. I was way undersized.
Yeah.
And my senior year, I spent all summer. I ate so many calories. Like I think I had to go to the bathroom like every hour on the hour. Because dude, I was eating so many. I was eating like 10,000 calories a day. And I was lifting twice. I got up to 244.
Wow.
And I felt like,
Yeah.
It was not fun. Now I moved well because I put it on the right way.
Right.
With a lot of protein and a lot, I was doing all right, and I was taking creatine, and I was waterlogged as piss. So like I did it right, so I could move well and things, but I felt just kind of off a little bit because I was carrying so much weight. My back hurt. Like I was like, I don't know, if this is for me. But yeah, I was kind of curious about that, man. How the hell you're so small playing left guard? I played a little offensive line my senior year too. I primarily played defense.
Yep.
And about halfway through the season, we had a couple kids that were just really bad. And the head football coach came up to me and said, "Hey, how would you feel about being a pulling guard?" I was like, "Nah, I'm good." And he said, "You want to play tackle? No. You want to play tight end? Yeah, I'll do that."
Yeah, exactly.
And they put me at tight end. They threw 3 passes to me in 5 games. I caught one for a touchdown. The ref called it out. To the day I die, I'll say that was a touchdown. With that being said, I primarily blocked. I was basically just another tackle. But it was fun, dude. And, I miss it. Like, that's something you always look back on, like your high school experiences.
I agree.
But the transition in what I was talking about was about like different, wrestling in different areas. And Ohio is essentially like a hotbed, dude. Like we actually wrestled one of y'all's kids at Kids Nationals a couple years ago. He's a freaking stud. That Worcester kid.
Tommy Worcester. Yeah. So he was a runner-up, state runner-up this year as a freshman for Dublin Coffin High School, who's the number 1 high school in Central Ohio right now. They've had a good run. I think they've won the district tournament 6 or 7 years in a row, starting I think in 2019 till now. I think they've won it every year. So they've had a good streak. And yeah, Tommy Worcester's a stud. Real good.
Dude, he is. Yeah, man. He's a great kid.
He's awesome. Super hard worker. I've got nothing but good things to say about that kid. I like him a lot.
Yeah, man. We didn't know him. We've been to Tulsa and all this stuff, and we caught him in Greco. It didn't end well, so it's like, all right. But there's, I think that the South is closing the gap on the northern states. I mean, we're not going to catch Pennsylvania anytime soon, but like Orion Mills is from Georgia. He just made the world team. Shout out to Orion Mills. He's a great kid, by the way. We've wrestled, like, we've always been a little bigger than him, so we've never actually wrestled him, I don't think, except maybe once in Little League, maybe like youth, I don't know. But he's a great kid, dude. We've rolled with him at some camps and stuff. He's legitimately he's going to be a D1 guy. He is. Cody Clark's right behind him there. They're training partners over at Roundtree. Shout out to Sammy. There are kids, right? Like, that are kind of Harrison Murdoch. He just won in HSCA. He's actually injured right now, but dude, he's a killer. Like we have a lot of kids that are coming from the South. Dylan Villers, Jackson Lane, Tennessee kids. There's just a lot that you can take anywhere on a national stage and they can compete. So, but again, it's kind of top heavy, right? Compared to up there with you guys. And I think that's why and I've thought about this over time, that the northern states always stay so good because they have such deep competition, and they don't have to go to, over here to this state or that. They can wrestle their local tournaments and get tons of competition.
Yeah, for sure.
And they probably have a ton in the room, right? Like,
Yeah, there's some wars. There's some wars in the room. Yeah, especially during the season when we're like peak, like right before. I mean, obviously now that's off season, like kids are doing other sports and stuff, so we don't see as much of that right now. But February leading up to March, I mean, there's some hammers. There's some like state title matches going down in our room at the youth level, and I'm like, holy crap! This is D1 level wrestling, NCAA D1 level wrestling. I'm seeing between 2 elementary school kids, at our room on a Tuesday night, you know what I mean, or Thursday night or whatever. So I see stuff like that every week, and it blows my mind for sure.
Dude, at this point in time with this training center mentality, and that's what Pursuit is a training center.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. Yep. It's a club for every single kid. Doesn't matter what school you're affiliated with. We're not affiliated with any high school. We want to bring all the best people together, and we're all just going to get better together.
Young Guns is in Pennsylvania, but they did an extension down in Nashville, and the guy that runs it, his name's Mike Hatcher. Hatcher has the greatest story ever. If you want to get to know him, we did a podcast together probably 30 episodes ago. He was Dan Gable's practice partner at Iowa. If you ever want to check that out, go hear those stories. It's crazy. But Mike is a unique individual, and he opened up their extension in Nashville, Young Guns Nashville. And dude, he puts it like this: I am a supplemental opportunity.
Right.
And and that's a great way of looking at it, right? Like a supplemental opportunity. The problem that you run into in a lot of areas, and Drew Bloggs told me this. You know, Drew, he runs the media.
Yep.
We were talking, actually, I don't know if we were on the podcast or after, but he said, dude, he said, you know, my stepson, I think it was his stepson he was mentioning. He said, man, he goes, the coach gets so mad we take him over here to train. These school coaches across the country have to encourage training centers.
Yeah, I agree. Because
you don't always have the kids in your high school room that are going to help build your other kids.
Right.
And I think if there was more partnership, this is my theory, you know, on this. If there's more partnerships with, I'm just going to make this up. How many high schools you got like within a 50-mile radius of you?
I think there's, so in Central Ohio Division I believe there's 47. I want to say 47 just in the Darby district alone. And then there's D2 and D3. And there's, you know, a bunch of those too, probably 30 each.
So 140 high schools.
Over probably 120 high schools within 50 miles.
Imagine, and you're almost centrally located to all that, right?
Yeah, right in the heart of Columbus, Ohio. Yep.
Imagine if every single school, not that this would happen, but I'm just throwing this out here, or 5 high schools, and we're all next to each other, twice a week got in a van and came, right? Or there was extensions of pursuit closer, right? I'm just throwing this, I'm making out a scenario.
Right.
And that's essentially what I think Perler's done, right? Out in Missouri. Of how much better, like Ohio's a killer wrestling state anyway, but how much better it would be in a year, right?
Yeah, it'd be insane. I agree.
But high school coaches and especially middle school coaches, who, like you said earlier, my middle school coach didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And dude, that is a common theme, bro. You get a maintenance guy or somebody that was an assistant football coach or whatever. They want it their way.
Yeah.
90% of the time, their way doesn't work.
Right.
So they need to really, I really think that the training center model needs to be encouraged by high school, middle school coaches. And I think parents that want to get their kids into wrestling need to really, that needs to be their first stop. Yeah. Don't go through your school. Look at your opportunities for clubs and training centers in your area. Yeah. And if you imagine you got a kid 3 years that, you know, you've trained for 3 years, he goes to middle school, dude, he's going to be a hammer.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I would say, you know, I would agree with everything you're saying. I think the school coaches, I think back in the day and before there was all the club opportunities in the 70s and 80s and 90s, whatever, early 2000s, 2010s even, there wasn't nearly as many opportunities as there is now as far as club wrestling goes. Club wrestling wasn't really a thing back then. So the school coaches kind of had to facilitate all their own success, whatever. But now they can outsource all that, you know, but a lot of the coaches still want to kind of keep it in-house and do their own thing, you know, which is fine. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It takes a lot of effort doing that, you know? So the reason why that clubs exist is to kind of relieve the job of the school coaches from doing that. The school coaches, you can still take credit. It's still your guy and everything. It's not like our club built him and everything like that. We want you to take the credit, you know, at whatever high school the kid goes to, you know, and that's why at our club at Pursuit, we literally have a Hall of Fame wall. If you place top 8 at the state tournament, you're on the Wall of Fame. We put your high school affiliation, you know, on that thing. You're a Pursuit wrestler, but we make sure it's known what high school you're at and everything, or what high school you're going to feed into. Even with the youth and middle school guys, we put their future high school affiliation, you know, on there. We advertise that. We want to give all the credit to the school coaches. We're not trying to be at odds with them, rivals with them. We're trying to help them and you know make their lives easier, you know. So I think that's a common misconception, you know, is the school coaches versus the club scene, et cetera, et cetera. I know Perler talks about that a lot in his videos. I watch a lot of his stuff on YouTube, and he's always saying He's like, dude, the school coaches, haven't seen their wife in 3 months, whatever. Like they're not your kids year-round coach, like let the club coaches coach your kids, in the off season, whatever. And then your kids, if during the season, if they want to come do extra train after their school practice, let them come do the extra training. We're not taking anything away from the school coaches at all. Like, so I think that's a common misconception that kind of happens, and there's a lot of especially in Central Ohio a little bit, I obviously know a lot of the local coaches and everything. So I kind of hear a lot of the chatter and whatnot. That kind of goes along with that, but we're trying to help the school coaches, and I think some school coaches are doing a better job now of understanding that. Like there are clubs in Central Ohio, like not only us but the other clubs. I think it's more of a normal thing now than it was 10 years ago. To have the club coach and school coach relationship, et cetera. But it's still kind of a newer concept. So I think people are still trying to understand it a little bit more. Like, hey, we're here to help you guys. We're not here to take your guys away. No one's recruiting anyone to come to this high school. There's none of that going on. It's literally, we're all just trying to help each other get better and get all the best kids together and wrestle. And so we can all get better. You know what I mean?
And that's what it is. I want to bring up these two key points though. Training centers are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
They are. And I want to throw that out there, which compared to, I don't know what you guys charge. I don't want to ask that on
Yeah,
here,
yeah. You can go to our website and see too. We don't hide that. You know what I mean? It's out there.
Yeah. I just don't want to, that's however it works, right?
Right.
I think what we pay is $150 a month.
Yeah.
Which, right now, Bryson only goes to Minion once a week because the RTC is going on right now, but the Minion coaches the RTC practice, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
With that being said, that's another thing. You've got kids. I think coaches are still building these in-house programs because of the cost.
Yeah.
We're in a economic crisis. I think I've said that before.
Yeah.
Eggs are $7 for a dozen eggs, right?
Yeah.
So when you have people, and we're feeling it on my other company, we're feeling it right now because when things get tight, people start canceling things and
right.
rebudgeting and things like that. I think that with all the money that's thrown around, I think that one thing that clubs could do, and I'm just throwing this out here, and I'm going to call out USA Wrestling too because I don't care if I make anybody mad. But clubs could be okay, we'll give you one free month, to see if they are going to stick with it. And I think there should be a setup through USA Wrestling. Now, this is just my theory, okay? And I think it's doable considering how many millions of dollars goes into USA Wrestling. And we'll use Pursuit as an example. We'll give you 30 days, okay? So if you start March 1st, I'm just making this up, April 1st, if you go, you're there every day, you participate, you work hard, we'll sign a waiver. This waiver goes to USA Wrestling. USA Wrestling will sponsor that kid if he makes under a certain amount of money a year, his family.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So I'm just going to throw out a number. What if it's under $50,000 a year, right, or whatever?
Right.
All right. I'm just making it up. This is just what I'm kind of piecing together. So if it's under $50,000 a year, USA Wrestling will pay his club fee so he can participate.
Yeah.
And if it's, I don't know what like you said, what you charge, but if it's $150 a month, what we're paying.
Yep. For
USA Wrestling, that's pennies, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be every kid, right? But you're going to have kids that you can
case by case basis,
Right. Because things happen, dude. People get laid off, real life environment. So don't say, and I'm saying this to USA Wrestling, don't say that you want to grow the sport, but you don't do anything on the bottom level to try to help get more kids involved.
Right.
And this is a way you could do that and literally change a kid's life, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you that down in Atlanta area, Legacy, you've been seeing Jacob Allen.
Right? Yeah. I see his stuff all over. Yeah, he's posting all the time.
Yeah, him and Muggsy are boys and they do stuff. I was texting with him the other day, and he told me, because they had sent me the cadet team sign-ups for Team Georgia.
Yep.
And, for Bryson. And I'm like, They sent it to me on, what is today? Wednesday? As we're recording.
Wednesday the 14th.
Wednesday the 14th. They sent it to me on Monday at 7 o'clock. They said, you got till this Sunday to pay your fees. Okay, $1,100. Give you 6 days notice. Okay, $1,100. And I'm thinking, this is retarded.
Yeah.
Like, you're giving everybody a 6-day notice to
work up that money.
Like that should have been something that was being paid over months.
Right.
Here's $100 a month, $100 a month, $100 a month, whatever. Yeah. And I'm thinking, how many kids on this is not going to go because of this situation?
Oh yeah. It kills off everybody.
And I was texting with him. He's like, dude, if it was me, he said, every other state has been fundraising all year for USA Wrestling in their state. He said, Georgia started 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're really going to pull enough to get everybody there in 3 weeks? Like, come on, dude. Yep. So I also think that, that you want to be able to make the sport not only build good wrestlers, right, good people, but you don't want to push that back end cost off on the parents.
Right.
Hardworking blue collar people. Now there are a lot of rich people that their kids wrestle, right, and it's no big deal to them. But there's more kids that are on budgets and things like that. And that's kind of what I was kind of throwing out here. That if USA Wrestling did something like that, it would not only be good for the kid, it would be growing the sport, and it would be good for the clubs because the club would be bringing in revenue on a regular basis for kids that they wouldn't otherwise have. Right. So it's a good business thing. It's a good business sense. And for USA Wrestling, they're a nonprofit. So it's a write-off anyway. Right. So it's kind of a win-win. So I hope USA Wrestling hears me say this and it becomes a national thing and we get more kids in here scrapping.
Same here. Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely not a great solution to it, and I think it's definitely a tough conversation for sure. Money's always a tough conversation, and like that's like I would like to think I would have been a lot better, in my career had I had the money in high school to be able to afford to go to like Pursuit wasn't around. If I had the money to go to Colin Palmer's down the street, that's where Bracken trained when he was in high school. Like if I learned leg riding when I was in high school, I would have been pinning everybody. I didn't learn leg riding until I went to college when I had a really good college coach, Otterbahn. I finally learned boots, and then I'm like beating people I have no business beating. I'm like, man, if only I learned that 10 years earlier. So I mean, it is what it is, It's like money's, my mom was a single mom with 3 kids, in high school, and we were in a tough situation, and it is what it is, But obviously, everything works out the way it's supposed to. I didn't have the greatest career, but I am where I am today, due to a lot of it due to my lack of success and drive and work ethic, et cetera. So even if it doesn't work out for some kids, if they can't afford to go to the elite clubs or whatever it is. I'd like to think that I'm a decent example of a kid that didn't have a whole lot back in the day and never had the best career, whatever, due to lack of opportunities, whatever it was, but still turned out okay. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying that there's instead of trying to make everything so profitable that it's unattainable, like meet in the middle. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
I just think, and that's based off, and I'm calling out basically just USA Wrestling. AAU does a good job in a lot of states to make things really affordable. But just in general, just trying to meet in the middle somewhere to actually grow this sport for the long run. And, I was just like you, man. I agree with what you just said. I had a single mom. Granted, I was an only child. I wouldn't know what it's like to have a brother. But we grew up really poor. We were homeless at times. I remember sleeping in a church we broke into not to freeze to death. Like I've been there, right? Yeah. With that being said, though, I kind of had the same kind of get after it as you do, right? Yeah. In terms of like I borrowed a bike and put my helmet and shoulder pads and rode it for 2 miles, and then in the dark, I'm scared to death looking up at those street lights trying to get back. And so I agree with your theory too, that when there's a will, there's a way, and you can just fight through it. But it's just my thought that, maybe there's a scenario where that could be a thing because, there are a lot of kids. And I think of one kid that I had on a little league football team I coached years ago, who was an absolute stud athlete, and he would have been a great wrestler. And, but in his situation, unfortunately, his dad passed away of a drug overdose. His mom actually just like vanished. They went to take him to him and his brothers when his dad died. His dad had him, and he had a drug overdose and passed away. And the brother, he had him and his older brother and 2 younger brothers, and they took him to the mom, right? DFAX or whoever took him to the mom. The mom wasn't even at the address, and they couldn't find her. They ended up, all those boys ended up with the grandparents, right? And I didn't see him for several years, and I didn't know this story till I ran into him again. And dude, he was just in really bad shape, and it just makes you think like those are the kids that really need this kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, and that's kind of what Mac Clash means to me, right? Like if they can see a character and it's cool, and maybe we can help them get into something, that would be something I'd love to do. And that's just the poor kid in me, kind of like you, right?
Yeah.
Like compassionate.
Right. I am too. I am too. Yeah. There's so many kids like from my high school, like we bust in a lot of kids from Columbus City schools into my high school. And some of these kids are coming from really bad areas. And I see, like all walks of life, at my high school. And I'm really passionate about helping the people with less opportunities as well, being me, that being myself, and I wish I had the opportunity. So, like I'm all for that and all for helping those kids out. It definitely isn't easy to do. It takes a lot of resources and things of that nature, but it's worth it. Change a kid's life. Seeing a kid go from, the kid that might be on the streets and stuff, all of a sudden he's like a successful wrestler, and he's like his life's moving in the right direction. Like that's my favorite story.
Dude, I'll tell you this: we've had a great conversation, by the way.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. We've been going the whole time. We've been rolling.
It's been great, man. I do want to close with this since we're on this topic, right?
Yep.
About 2 years ago, I reached out to Beat the Streets, right? Now, there's a lady in Detroit who is an absolute doll. I forget her name, but I sent them some wrestling shoes a few years ago to distribute to underprivileged kids. But before that, I got to some national director guy. I forget his name. And I said, dude, we need to beat the streets in Chattanooga, right? And I was talking about down here, right? Like in this area. I said, and they come back and he told me this. He said, yeah, we were going to do that, but there's not enough people. And I thought about it for a minute. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like third biggest city in the state. You got the tri-state area with Alabama and Georgia. Like there's plenty of people here. And I thought about it, and I'm not bashing Beat the Streets. They do a lot of good things, but it comes down to how much revenue they can make.
Right.
And I figured that out very quickly. And I'm like,
yeah.
But if you look in the city of Chattanooga, like downtown is where like, coffee shops and businesses and, the aquarium and the IMAX and all that shit is. But on the outskirts of that, you got projects everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like everywhere. Like there's, government subsidized housing and things like that. All those kids would be at the Beat the Streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially with it being, if you put it right in downtown, like they're literally, all these projects are literally right on the outskirts of downtown Chattanooga.
Yeah.
And dude, it would be huge in that area. It would be absolutely huge. And I remember after that, about 2 weeks later, I had a conversation. Brainerd High School is in Chattanooga, and their coach reached out to me and said, hey man, somebody told me about Bmoney Beastin and that you could maybe help us. And I was like, well, how can I help, buddy? He said, I got 2 kids that don't have shoes. I said, I tell you what, I'll give them both a pair of shoes and a gear bag. Do they need anything else? He goes, they could use a headgear. Well, I didn't have any at the time. That's one thing that's hard to build, right? Is headgear.
Yeah.
I've got 10 sitting over here in a box, and I'm like, they're nice, but they're not what I want. Right. But so I went and I actually ordered 2 Cliff Keen headgears from a dude I knew, and I kind of packaged it up and I took it down to Brainerd High School. And he said, dude, I want to build like something for inner city kids. And I'm like, man, I'd love to do that. And I tried for about 6 months reaching out to businesses, and because it's wrestling, nobody cared.
Yeah.
And it was just heartbreaking to me because it's like, I reach out to Beat the Streets. Like it needs to be here. This is a place that could use it. And because of the demographic, it wasn't going to happen. And then I had somebody that wanted to do it, but we couldn't get funding to make it happen.
Yep.
So I didn't mean to go down a sad rabbit hole, but
No, I mean, you're spitting. It's real life, It's just the world we live in. It's tough to. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy. It's like you need the money. It's like where's the money coming from? You need money to fund stuff like that. To get that stuff off the ground. You need money. You need people volunteering their time, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not easy to get stuff like that off the ground. I've tried to get things off the ground before, similar to that in the past, like the previous club I worked with, Columbus Wrestling Club. We had a lot of those kids coming in, like underprivileged kids, et cetera. And the guy, Brian Church, who runs that operation, he does a phenomenal job. He's been my mentor for a long time. He's helped so many of those kids out and, sacrificed a lot of time, resources, et cetera. To help, so many kids out through the years, and really inspired me, to do the same thing too. And it's not easy, it's not easy. It takes so much time, effort, energy, money, resources. And it's just such a big battle to fight, or a big project to take on, but it's for such a good cause, obviously, like we talked about. And it's heartbreaking when stuff like that, when it doesn't work out, and it's so hard to get off the ground, and it's just too much.
Eventually, I think that it would be really cool. Have you kept up with like our characters and things like that at all?
I haven't too much now. I see all the stuff you post. A lot of times I'm just kind of on it real quick, and I get off. I try not to spend too much time on social media because I'm on it so much. But
I just want to show you this real quick. See the Coach Cutter character right there?
Yeah, that's sweet. Those designs are sweet.
He's based off of a guy that's involved with us. His name's Ken Hammonds, and he's an absolute sweetheart of a guy. He's up in the Nashville area. He wrestled at UT Chattanooga back in the day. Great dude. He is going to start a club in the Nashville area, and I think we're going to base it off the Coach Cutter character. So that's going to be the first start of a Mat Clash club.
That's sweet.
I would like to build, and this, of course, it's going to be a school-based club, right? But
right.
I think there's going to be more and more opportunity to try to do that in areas to where we can, even if it's not in one location, maybe it's in lower income areas where we can kind of help and give them, gear discounts and, things like that. I think that's something that I'm really passionate about, that I want to push forward with.
Yeah. And
I don't know the route. I just know that it's going to start there, and then we'll see what happens. Because, dude, when I started Bmoney Beastin, what I thought it was and what it is today, it's not even close, bro.
Yeah.
So, if you have a passion about something and people and things like that, man, I think it's always, you only live one time. I think it's good to pursue that.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
But, dude, what y'all are doing up there in Ohio, man, is awesome.
Appreciate it.
I share all y'all's stuff.
I appreciate sharing our stuff. I really do. I really do.
I appreciate just you coming on, chatting with me, getting to know that, hey, I started in 8th grade and this is my life now. That's awesome, dude, And
it doesn't always go, according to plan. It's one of those things where it's like I look back and I'm like, I wish I would have started a lot earlier type of thing, but who knows if I would have stuck with it all the way through, and then wrestled 5 years in college, because I had a bunch of teammates that started when I was, when I wrestled D3 at Otterbein down the street, that I was the only one that wrestled there all 5 years. We had over 20 guys come in my freshman class in November of 2017. And I was the only one that made it all 5 years. But by the time we got to year 4, it was only 2 of us, out of 20 guys. The rest of them all quit for some reason. There was different reasons why people quit, but these guys were all guys that had done it way longer than me, so it doesn't really matter when you start. It's more about what do you do at the time you have? If you start late, you got to catch the guys that are in front of you,
Dude, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. It is. When you got kids, and Bryson's going through that on and off here lately, man. He started wrestling, I guess he was 5 or 6, I don't remember, and it was kind of by accident. We just seen a flyer and I put him in it, and whatever. But it, as time went on, I think there's always pressure, right? You're expected, once you get to a certain level, you're expected to win, right?
Yep.
So when you don't, it's like the world ends.
Yeah.
Yep. And dude, I don't agree with that at all. Over the weekend, bro. All right, no excuses here. He wrestled freestyle state. He pulled a kid. The kid beat him a couple years ago. Kid's really good, state champ in Georgia. He's down 6-2 in freestyle. They're in the second period, and he gets, or I think it was 4-2, and then it went 2-2. Yeah. All right. So he gets a takedown. The kid's winded. This, you can go watch the video. They stopped the match for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's the only excuse. I'm not making an excuse. It's just like, hey, he was pissed afterward. They got in a scramble. He got put on his back and pinned. He ain't been pinned in 4 or 5 years. He got caught in the cradle. He was pissed. He said, dude, I was getting my pace, bro, and they stopped the match. And he's like,
hold all the momentum.
He's like over there. You could see it in the video. He's like talking to Sean, Sean Russell. He's like, dude, what the fuck are they doing? And the kid's over there, he's a good wrestler, right? But he's gassed. He's like, I'm getting my pace, and they took it away from me. And he was so mad about it. But he got like, they don't have true second in Georgia, so he got third or whatever. And dude, you look at it, and he was the 1 seed. He was supposed to win, right? Is it the end of the world he lost a damn freestyle match? Who cares, right? Like, he was more mad about it than I was. Like, I don't care. Here's the thing. At the end of there's a lot of pressure, right, with the sport.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of, it's hard physically, it's hard mentally, but it builds the greatest people.
Yep. 1,000%. I agree.
I have never met anybody in the sport of wrestling that's done this for a long, long period of time that is not just a great human being.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah. Builds so much character, so much, tenacity, heart, everything. It's like it's you versus you out on the mat. There's no teammates that you can blame. Things like that. It keeps you out of trouble. You're going to practice after school. You got to focus on the tournament coming up this weekend. Like, you got to make sure your weight's all good. So much discipline, so much at everything.
Accountability is the word.
Yep.
And we have a society, kids coming up right now, that have no accountability. So I really hope that we'll end at this. I really hope that wrestlers are who takes over in governing offices, in teaching positions, in leadership roles.
Yep, because they'll understand it.
They will understand it. Dude, this has been awesome, Sam. You are badass. Pursuit is badass. Keep building these awesome reels. I'll keep sharing them. Maybe at some point we do something together. I'd love to do that. Before I go, last thing I want to do is start doing this show. I want to do a PSA of vaping. All right, just before we close. Vapes are in every high school. They're in every middle school now. This has become a common theme. Hit doubles, not vapes. Go wrestle. Quit trying to be cool. It's going to hurt you in the long run. It's going to affect your life, your lungs, your health, your friends, family. Don't vape. I'm just going to say that. Just say no. That's my PSA. Just say no.
Yep.
Episode 48 of the Bmoney Beastin podcast. Sam Shalvey. Did I say it? Shalvey?
Shalvey.
Shalvey. I kept saying it wrong. Sam Shalvey, Pursuit Wrestling in Columbus, Ohio. We are out.